Our first webinar today is the top 11 things in version 11. And without further ado, I'd like to present to you Keith Wayland and Mr. Richard Stout. Enjoy.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Jackie.
Thank you, Jackie, for that wonderful introduction. And thank all of you out there today for taking a little bit of time from your morning to attend our webinar on the top 11 reasons to move to CloudSuite v11. This is an update on a speed session we did at Inform just a couple months ago. And really it could be called the top 11 things we're excited about with version 11. There's a lot to like out there, and we feel like this is an opportunity to bring some attention to some of that feature functionality and some of those business opportunities.
For sure.
But first we're going to turn the clicker on. Second.
But wait, there's more.
There's more.
Right.
We're going to talk about RPI.
Yeah, RPI Consultants. RPI Consultants, that's us. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of our audience is familiar and hopefully has had a chance to work with us before. But RPI Consultants was founded in the waning years of the Clinton administration. Has seen a lot of ups and downs since then, but has maintained as an independent consulting firm focused on Lawson and Infor solutions. We're super excited about CloudSuite and version 11, and we've had some great opportunities to get hands-on with the software early on, and we have a large team of trained and certified consultants who have gotten early access, have started on projects, and are really looking forward to
pushing the envelope.
The envelope and helping a lot of customers over the next few years move on to this great new platform.
Great, so that's enough about RPI. If you want to know more about RPI, email questions@rpic.com, and I promise Mr. Bill Getty will get back to you. Today's agenda, we're going to talk about 11.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what we're going to do. So without further ado, the number one reason to move to CloudSuite v11, get thee some mobility.
Yeah.
Because it's 2018, almost 19, and your CEO should be able to approve stuff on her iPad.
Yeah. I mean, it's sometimes hard to remember that only a couple of years ago, our primary interface for our ERP system was shackled to Internet Explorer 9 on a Windows desktop, right? Yeah. And Lawson's come a long way. It's had a lot of browser compatibility. But still, the modern workforce demands a way to interact with the system, on the go, on a tablet, on a phone, or just, different ways of getting into the system. I mean, looking forward to even, Coleman, where we can speak and hear responses back, or chat and get answers back. There's definitely a lot of different ways now that we interact with software that have moved beyond the desktop. And this platform is built from the ground up to enable that, right? It's not a bolt-on, it's not an afterthought.
It's a completely rethought UI, basically.
Exactly. It's a technology foundation that was built to make that possible without a lot of extra effort on the developer's part.
So this UI has a completely different navigation that is role-based, it's intuitive, and this is what's called responsive design. So it's neutral what device you're accessing it through, that you can see that information and so forth. And we think this is a good step in the right direction. Yeah. It also requires a lot less maintenance in terms of installing and maintaining, separate mobile applications and things of that nature. Number two reason to be excited about version 11 CloudSuite.
It's workflow that matches how you work. What does that mean? It's a process-driven application.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah. When we think about Lawson, Lawson was essentially an older ERP system.
Most ERPs, yeah.
Right? This is the model. They were basically a glorified database system. They were a database system with forms overlaying the tables. And what that means is that although we have some, data validation, business logic, and some back processes, a lot of the actual workflow of how users use the system to get their job done, that doesn't reside within the application. It resides within training guides, it resides within test scripts, and it resides within people's minds. Here with CloudSuite, CloudSuite was built by consultants who are out in the field and understand how Lawson was used for a long time. All of that input was funneled in to the design and development of CloudSuite. And our CloudSuite HCM and CloudSuite FSM applications are built with the user in mind in terms of managing and walking them through their business processes. It's not simply in the background waiting for people to execute processes upon it.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. So while one is transaction driven, let me store data, the other is process driven. How does this move throughout the organization and get approved, processed, edited, etc.? So we think that's a big leap forward. It's sort of a rethinking. There are a lot of the guts in CloudSuite that are similar to Lawson. It's an evolutionary step, but there's a lot more pre-built process stuff that can be leveraged. So it's very exciting. Number 3 reason to be excited about version 11 CloudSuite, a GL structure that's super flex. Now, we've gotten a lot of attention to this concept of dimensions, which basically means you have an expanded and more flexible GL code block. And that's really cool. That offers some opportunities to track at an indexing level that makes it easier to report and extract data, more different types of information, right? So it's not only can I more efficiently maintain and set up how I track the transactions that are processing throughout my organization to help me manage that performance and enable more information, but I also make it easier for people to access that information themselves directly out of the system and not have to extract that data and put it into a third-party system or slice and dice it or give them static reports that they can't operate. A couple more things that I think don't get enough attention in this GL, this revamped global ledger is the fact that you can have multiple roll-up hierarchies, and this is really huge, right? In Lawson, you have one that you define, the level addressing in GL20 or whatever your chart roll-up is. And if you want to have any other sort of roll-up, or if you want to look at some subset, for example, you only want to see the physician practices across many different markets or companies in your general ledger, you're extracting that data and compiling it. Well, in version 11, you can define these hierarchies that only include these subsets. And you can define as many as you want, and they're there available for reporting, not only for your Power Reporting super users and BI guys, but anybody with access to self-service. So that's really cool, right? Just a general concept of having your system of record be your main driver for data and reporting. And it's this flex GL structure that really allows you to get there.
One of the themes here is taking real-world knowledge about our organization and bringing it into our ERP system. When we look at building out these different dimensions, this replaces workarounds that we've had to do for a long time. We think about smart numbering, adding taking the first 2 or 3 digits of accounting unit or repurposing process level to mean something like a facility.
You could just have facility.
Right, you could just have facility. The application adopts the verbiage that you give it for the names of these dimensions, and it means that we're doing data validation and analytics right within the application. The application understands what we're talking about, where in the past, we might have that knowledge of, the first 3 digits of the accounting unit represents what facility we're at. But with the application being unaware, where does that need to go? It needs to go over on the report developers, need to be cognizant of that. Anyone who's analyzing data needs to understand that relationship, right? It's a whole extra layer. Here we're able to take that, put it right into the application.
And I wouldn't underestimate the value of that dynamic naming convention. So if you do choose to use facility as part of your GL code block, it pushes that out to your journal entry screens, to your purchase order, requisition, AP screens. It'll exist everywhere in whatever structure you do it. So it'll be intuitive.
Yeah, so our new employee onboarding no longer has to give what is the definition of an accounting unit here at our organization. We just name things as they are.
Name things as they are. Number 4 reason to be excited about version 11 CloudSuite, real world HR Auric Structures. So there's a lot of increased flexibility here, and you could have multiple depth levels, you can have multiple organizational structures, you can have supervisor structures that are different than your organizational structures. And this is really important because we know that in organizations, it's not always this very nice cookie cutter, 3-level depth all across, how it's structured. In real life, it's a little bit more complex than that. And one of the things that Stout always talks about is, why is it that every time we want to build an approval matrix, we can't leverage your existing HR structure, your system of record?
Right. Yeah, I mean, here at RPI, we've been helping customers implement requisition approval, AP invoice approval for a long time. When we start these projects, we begin with, okay, can we tie in to our HR supervisor structure
sense, right?
to drive approvals? And usually the answer is no. That's not who really approves these transactions here. So we end up building out a completely parallel system of relating employees to each other, of who needs to see what, and it becomes really difficult to manage and maintain. It's really difficult to sync up as we have staffing changes throughout the organization, new hires, terminations, and it's hard to keep user provisioning and account access all in one line. It's really crazy that we haven't been able to take all the knowledge about the relationships between different employees or contractors and take all that knowledge and put it in our HR system of record. Well, now we can with Global HR and CloudSuite HCM.
And that's one thing that I think is really important, is in real organizations, sometimes we have contractors or third parties that do have approval and supervisory responsibilities. And right now, to get that into your existing system, you either have to do workarounds, whereas version 11 comes equipped to handle that reality. So it's more made to mimic the real world, and if you can put together something that mimics your actual organization, you can then leverage it for everything else. So we think that's very powerful. Number 5, fifth reason to get excited about CloudSuite version 11, and one that I'm very passionate about, is a modern open enrollment experience. So open enrollment here has come a long way from what's available in version 9, 10, and historically. A lot of organizations actually don't use Lawson Open Enrollment. They use third-party software, third-party administrators, and some of those that do, including some that we have helped, have a lot of customizations to make it easier and more intuitive, the screens you flow through. This is the UI for someone going through an open enrollment experience right here, just a simple screenshot. And as you can see here on the left, these green check marks indicate sections that have been completed. Why are there sections that have been completed and not? Is because you can go in your own order, and because you can save this in draft. Because sometimes when you're going out and reviewing the benefits that are there and learning about how they change, you might have to have a conversation with your significant other, talk it over, think it over. That makes a lot more sense. It's also a lot easier to add descriptions, attachments, instructions. You can create dependencies so that if one thing is selected, then another shows up. If not, it doesn't. That's something we customize a lot. And there's also this very nice management aspect, this dashboard aspect to it, where you can see out of your entire employee base, how many people have already completed it, how many are in process, how many haven't started. And from there, you can drill in directly and communicate with that subset and say, I see you've started it, but haven't completed, and that blasts out to 3,450 people, and you can follow up with it. So this is a huge opportunity, I think, not only in improving the customer experience, but also in reducing time and effort spent in the HR department and money spent on a third party, right? Because you have everything integrated with your system of record, you set up the benefit plans there, you're ready to go. Number 6 reason to be excited about version 11 CloudSuite, managing all your invoices in one place.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this, Stout.
Well, Lawson does a great job of taking an AP invoice and making sure it gets posted and making sure it gets paid on time, and we manage all of that data in the system.
Transactional AP processing, A+.
A+, from the point that we have a pristine invoice that's fully approved, that has good GL coding on it, Lawson can pretty much take it from there. But what about everything that's led up to that point? Well, we've used other systems, imaging systems, other workflow systems to meet that gap. Now with CloudSuite Financials, we have a solution that pretty much covers the invoice lifecycle from end to end. And it helps us manage getting invoice data that might be incomplete, might be bad, getting that information, work through a process of approvals, of gathering GL coding, making sure we have a good vendor record, and getting it to the point where we can bring it in and continue processing as a solid AP invoice. And by doing this all within our financial system of record, we have good validation from the very beginning, and makes accruals a lot easier.
Right, so very often we either track the data in parallel so that we can have it in Lawson, or we have to add information into our third-party system to be able to create these accruals and just create visibility. So this is a single point of visibility where we can see where all our invoices stand, including invoices that came in for which we haven't set up a vendor yet.
Yeah.
And then we can watch the throughput, where it gets stuck. It's just an easier way to manage the AP process when you consolidate a single system of record.
Yes.
Which brings us to number 7, integrated solutions are where it's at. And I think there's a reality that we all accept that, an ERP is not going to be able to be every single business application in an organization. But there's also balance. It's a big difference between having a dozen, maybe even 24 different vendor business application relationships and having 100 plus. And when you look at CloudSuite, it has a lot more robust, best of breed functionality to offer in a fully integrated fashion. And when you look at certain specific things, having those integrated solutions allows you to leverage some next level data sets. Like for example, here in the screenshot, we're looking at an employee resource record, what we might refer to colloquially as a HR11. And what it's comparing are the competencies that the employee has to the position that they're in. But once those same competencies are built, they can be used for finding replacements, developing succession, building out new job requisitions that are similar or for the same position if we have to replace it. So you have this one point where you can maintain and create this next level organizational information that can permeate, in this case, throughout your HCM.
Yeah.
And obviously there's functionality around cash and treasury, around grants, around contracts, around performance management, all very powerful, all very good solutions that are worth taking a look at.
And there's an enormous amount of data that needs to be in sync to make this solution work.
If you're in separate systems.
If you're in separate systems, then that makes it a high barrier of entry to implement such a system when you have to think about maybe creating half a dozen interfaces or more to keep
mapping
data
all the
in sync.
tables and looking at how these same data elements are structured somewhere else.
Exactly.
And then making sure they're all in sync and up to date. Oh snap! What is this, Stout?
Well, with CloudSuite having so much integrated functionality, we can look at rolling out these additional functionality and additional modules with a lot less effort. Mm-hmm. And it means we have a lot less interfaces that we need to maintain and a lot less possibility of interface exceptions that need to be handled.
Yeah, you'd think you'd be more of an advocate of supporting interface developers the world over. I guess not.
I don't build interfaces because I love the beauty of interfaces.
Oh.
I build interfaces because I like what they can power and what we can do at the end of the day.
Fair enough. Number 8 reason to be excited, that we are most excited about version 11 CloudSuite, is enabling data-driven decision making.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a big game changer from Lawson and really a lot
it's
of
a foundamental
lot of
concept,
legacy systems.
Ground up, yeah.
Exactly. Even when we look at the way we interact with the application, rather than bringing up a blank screen and then having to drill in or select to find the data I want to work with, every time I move around the CloudSuite application, I'm looking at list views. Mm-hmm. It's pretty much pervasive throughout the entire application. That whether it's employees or AP invoices or my item master, whatever it is, I'm taking a look at a list of data that's very easy for me to filter down on.
Right, those filters are right there at the top. So you start with data.
I can search.
As soon as you filter, it starts to, yeah.
I can add extra columns if I want. Pretty easy to bring in related fields. Even if those related fields are in different tables, I have to work through relations. All of that's built in. And if I'd rather work with that data in Excel rather than on the screen, that's just one click away too.
Yeah, and when you bring in those extra columns that might be particularly of interest to you with whatever screens you're working on, it remembers that. It's a personalization that's particular to how you interact with that data set or the type of information that you like to have there.
Yeah. In real terms, what this means is we're seeing a lot of our clients that are planning their move and designing their CloudSuite solution. A large portion of their library of crystal reports that they maintain now those won't be needed with CloudSuite because we have application functionality that replaces the need for our custom report. And when our end user wants some tweaks to that, they can handle that themselves. It's very intuitive. It's very easy. It's a pretty different than going back to the design of a customer report and asking a developer to add an extra field.
What if we change this or add this field? So the interactivity, I think, makes it a lot more self-service oriented and a lot more powerful. I'm going to add one thing that one of our financials consultants, Cindy Brankins, wanted to make sure I pointed out, which is this account analysis. So this is basically the equivalent of your GL90, where you can see, transaction detail, for posting level accounts, except in version 11, you can also see that for summary accounts, right? So just imagine in your GL90, if you could put summary accounts and or summary accounting units, and really you can do it for anything in your GL code block and see all the transactions associated with that. And that's been one of our favorite things in working with version 11. Number 9 reason to be excited about version 11 is because who maintains their own infrastructure?
Yeah, exactly. The technology footprint of these systems now are pretty complex. I mean, even when you think about moving from Lawson 9 to Lawson 10, it dramatically increased the number of servers. As we move forward, that complexity is only going to increase. So who better than billion-dollar organizations with teams of PhDs to make sure that the technology platform is available and it's replicated across data centers in different regions. It's fault tolerant. If a hard drive burns out, if an internet link goes down, we rely on big name companies like Amazon, Microsoft, and Google to build out that infrastructure. And it's really intimidating and not feasible for the average size, small, medium, or even large size organization to have that level of capability in-house.
And infrastructure investment, expertise, and investment in research and development. All these companies are at the cutting edge of whatever IT security and infrastructure technology and solutions there is.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the rigorous IT security testing that gets done against CloudSuite, that's just really an asset that the application has when it's available in the cloud.
Number 10 reason to be excited about version 11 CloudSuite: stay ahead, sleep soundly.
Yeah. So really what we're getting at here is it's important to have a plan for the future, right? Because even if you've recently upgraded to Lawson 10 and think, hey, I can get 5 or 8 or 10 more years out of that system, the problem there is that when we see our organization, our clients, go through organizational change, maybe a merger, acquisition, joint venture, partnership, or if new leadership comes in, Lawson doesn't necessarily compare favorably to some of the newer, more modern ERP systems that are out there in the marketplace. The systems that organizations like yours are probably using, maybe your competitors are using, and without a plan to move forward, staying on Lawson doesn't sound like the best strategic choice.
Absolutely. And there's a lot in CloudSuite, so I think it's important to be educated about what's out there and to have the strategic roadmap that, in the event of organizational changes, you're able to say, this is where we're going, this is what we're going to get out of it. And remember, one big difference between CloudSuite and everything else is the intellectual capital your organization has built over the last 20 years is on this system. This is where you can take advantage and know, these are my pain points and this is how I'm going to fix them.
Yeah.
Anything else, you're starting from scratch.
What we don't want our business users to do is to react to seeing another vendor's demo and say, wow, that looks amazing. I really wish that my current system had that, when in fact when your current system might be capable of that and they're just not aware of it.
So be the change. Number 11 reason to get excited about version 11.
It's the gateway to the future, right? So we really don't know what amazing innovations are coming next, in the IT space. But we know those innovations are going to be led by companies like Amazon with AWS, right? And we know that CloudSuite is best positioned to leverage those innovations as they become available. And I think Coleman is a perfect example of that.
Perfect example, right.
You know, if we thought about adding natural language processing and speech recognition into an existing application, where would we begin? Would we start by buying a supercomputer
the size of
to
a building.
crunch all that processing? No, we'd look to leverage those services and platforms that are already out there. That's what Infor has done by bringing technology tools that are only available into the cloud, creating a practical use and bringing those to market in the CloudSuite space.
So in summary, there's a lot to look at and know about version 11. And our goal here is to start creating some exposure to all this functionality. We've had the opportunity to go to a lot of clients and talk about it and been surprised that for all the talk of CloudSuite, maybe there's not full understanding of what it can do for you and what organizational pain points it can address. We also point out, hey, this is not an infrastructure project. This is not a behind the scenes minimize disruption. Quite the opposite. This is an opportunity to rethink some business processes and get yourself in a better position for the future. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.